Sports Radio this morning. If you turn on your television and look at the national news of the coverage last night from opening game 1 of the NFL season, where the Kansas City Chiefs began the defense of their Super Bowl from last season, and the highlight of game 1 is Baton Rouge native Clyde Edwards-Helaire, as he had 25 carries last night for 138 yards. He became the third Kansas City Chief to go over 100 yards in his NFL debut. He had 1 touchdown. He celebrated that touchdown by flashing the 225 into the NFL cameras, into the NBC cameras. You could hear Chris Collinsworth just gushing over Clyde Edwards-Helaire the entire broadcast, talking about what the possibility of Kansas City adding a true run threat to their offense. You know, Collinsworth was explaining to the NFL audience last night. I mean, it's just a scary narrative to think about. And Clyde, yesterday, everybody was talking about the buildup and what it was going to look like. I thought that he was going to shine, but it was better than I expected. I thought that it looks like a perfect fit. And I heard this last night, T. And Tony Dungy, I don't know if you heard this during the halftime, he compared Clyde to Warrick Dunn, who Tony Dungy coached at Tampa Bay.
1,000%. It's the exact same thing. It's Warrick Dunn. I watched him a lot watching the Falcons growing up.
Yeah. He went to Catholic High.
I actually just learned that this morning. I always knew he was a BR native. I didn't know he went to Catholic High. God, it's going to be insufferable this afternoon.
He will be relentless this afternoon.
But whatever. You can take this victory lap, Catholic High. Congratulations. But yeah, no, I was always struck by this, Jordy, watching Warrick Dunn back in the day, is that is supposed to be a brutal position, and it is. But Warrick Dunn was impossible to get a clean hit on. And you saw that last night with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. At 5'7", these guys just can't square him up. Even, the highlight, look at if you can find it, Danny. It doesn't have to be right now, but just see if you can find it anywhere. But it's on Twitter. I can maybe lead you there. But there's a highlight where it's straight on. Look at Jim Nagy's Twitter, because he was talking about it. But it's straight on from the end zone, and it's where he truck sticks that guy and gets down to the 1. And look at this. Okay, so pause it right when he lowers his head. How do you hit that?
Yeah.
That's
it's 2 feet off the ground.
It's a strike. It's like a tiny little strike. So it's just there's no surface area to connect with. And then so the guy hit the one area he could, and of course Clyde's so low to the ground and drives so much that he couldn't wrap up, and he just goes right through him. So yes, the similarities to Warrick Dunn are striking.
And to hear that last night on the broadcast made by Tony Dungy, who Dungy coached Warrick Dunn at Tampa Bay.
Yep.
And to hear both of those guys referenced, they are similar very much so in their style, in their stature, in their ability, and the fact that they're both from Baton Rouge and went to Catholic High was good for the broadcast last night. But just the way that he impacts that offense, it was the story of the offseason, but going back to what I said about Clyde and why, in my opinion, a lot of last night's success is not surprising anybody is because Kansas City committed to him so early on in this process.
Yeah.
And they gave him all of these reps. I was listening to somebody last night talking about these first-round picks. A lot of them come in with the pressure where they have a veteran at that position, and they'll go through training camp, and they'll split the reps with the veteran, and then they get to week 1, and they may start the vet for the first half, and then they would look at Clyde at halftime and say, "You're our guy. Go out there." Well, if you knew he was the guy, give him all the first team reps during the preparation. Clyde has been taking advantage of that. He's been getting all of the 1 reps, and last night he looked for. The soundbite that we played in headlines, if he was talking about that he still had butterflies after the game, he looked so calm. Mm-hmm. It looked so much like it was just an easy, natural fit for him.
Yeah, and it is a natural fit. That's the thing. It's so much like last year. When you think about the weapons that LSU had in their 11 personnel last year, with their top 3 receivers, Thad Moss and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, how similar does Kansas City look with Sammy Watkins, Tyreek Hill, Denard Robinson, or not Denard Robinson. Then you get into Kansas City, just has speed on speed on speed. But their top 3 receivers are great. Travis Kelce is obviously a top 5 guy at his position in the league, and now you add Clyde. And it's just the same way that LSU last year would stress you and overwhelm you. they're doing the same thing the Chiefs are now.
Here is more from Clyde last night talking about the first touchdown of his career.
Pretty much shout out to the O-line, getting everything cleared out up front. And then, from the rest after that, I knew I only had one person to beat. Watching film, knew the safety would come down and try to fill that hole. And pretty much at that point, I know they're just not trying to let anybody get outside. So ultimately, give them the vision of over pursuing, trying to get outside, put my outside foot in the ground, and get upfield.
The other side, Deshaun Watson, 20 of 32, 253 in the air, one score. He was sacked 4 times. His leading wide receiver last night was Will Fuller, 8 catches for 112 yards. But as T-Bob alluded, going to outside of headlines and coming into the first segment, he obviously missed DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah. And this is an LSU show mainly. And so many of my takes find their way back to the purple and gold. And I just couldn't help but be struck by how clear the impact of no DeAndre Hopkins was. And it's not to say that Fuller or the other guys aren't good, because, Fuller had a nice game. Like you said, I think they are pretty solid. But just losing an elite receiver like that takes away so much of the offense. Think about this. Think back to that national championship game. What happens if you don't have Jamar Chase? I'm not saying you won't win. You can, Joe Burrow, whatever. You still probably come back and win. But Jamar Chase didn't just get it going for himself, which he absolutely did when you needed most. You're down 17-7. You had to have something. He wins the one-on-ones. He scores, right? But then look at how that opened up everybody else around him, right? It looked like Burrow finally, he was like, okay, he got a little more comfortable, started to figure out the looks that Venables was giving him a little bit more. All of a sudden, Venables and the defense realized, okay, you know what? We tried to go one-on-one with Chase. We're getting our ass kicked. We now have to overcommit to him. And then next thing you know, Jefferson's making plays. And then Thad Moss is making plays. And Clyde's making plays. Because a guy like that opens up everything around him. And so the Texans, you could see the shockwaves that the absence of Hopkins sent to that offense last night. And look, I get it. It's not a one-to-one comparison. Because LSU's remaining talent with Eric Gilbert and Terrace Marshall, like their remaining talent is better than the Texans relative to their opposition. But to say, like we've just kind of said that, like in this Jamar Chase stuff, I feel like we've all just kind of been like, okay, we bought in to the next man up thing, and I hope that's right, and that's what you have to do mentally if you're a part of the team. But last night you saw just how much of an impact in the modern game losing a truly elite wide receiver can have on you, and especially can have on a guy like Deshaun Watson, who still had a good game, but at no point in the night looked truly threatening. And so it just reinforces how much pressure's on Marshall and Gilbert and these other guys to pick it up now that Chase is gone.
Real quick, Terrace Marshall was asked about that yesterday. He had some media availability about replacing Chase.
For me personally, it wasn't no mental shift. I mean, I've always been locked in even before he left. I mean, that's just the culture around here. We're always locked in, ready to go. So, I mean, I'm ready to take on whatever responsibility I got to take on, and I'm prepared.
Terrace Marshall, who was formerly the number 1 wide receiver in his recruiting cycle, the same cycle that Jamar Chase came out of. Chase last year, the Biletnikoff Award winner, which goes to the best wide receiver in college football. He opts out for his junior season, makes Terrace Marshall the number 1 target for the defending national champs. There you heard from him. We'll give you more sound from Marshall getting before we get out of here at 10 a.m. Hunt Palmer from the LSU Sports Radio Network next.